Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. I'm talking about a classic science fiction action movie from 1984 starring Tom Selleck, Runaway. Runaway was written and directed for the screen by Michael Crichton. If that name sounds familiar, maybe you saw one of the movies that was based on one of his books, or maybe you read one of his books. He wrote books like Congo, Sphere, Disclosure, Rising Sun, The Andromeda Strain, Jurassic Park, all of which became movies. And back in the 70s, also wrote and directed Westworld, came out in 73, which of course got a very popular show adapted more recently, and also directed a movie called Coma in 78, which starred Michael Douglas, very young Michael Douglas, and that same year also a movie called The Great Train Robbery starring Sean Connery. And Runaway is a science fiction action story that takes place in the near future since this came out in 84. The future in this movie is supposed to be around like 9091, and it kind of has like that kind of realistic sci-fi feel, like something like RoboCop, where everything is somewhat futuristic but pretty realistic in like the way things really are. So very interesting stuff. You got all these robots around that have all these different functions, very kind of everyday things that robots do for people, kind of like now. So there are a lot of things about this movie that are kind of ahead of its time. You see a drone in this movie. Back in the 80s, I don't think I ever saw something like what I see in this movie in terms of like the technology that they depict, which is pretty damn close to, a lot of stuff that they can do now. You see all kinds of robots that have all these different functions that can do different things, but um, in this future, somebody's been tampering with some of the robots and causing them to kill. Pretty cool premise. At the very beginning of the film, we meet Tom Selleck's character, Sergeant Jack Ramsay, for the first time as we see him and his new partner, Karen Thompson, going to stop one of these killer robots. And Karen's character is played by actress Cynthia Rhodes, who can be seen in movies like Flashdance, Staying Alive. She also appears in Dirty Dancing. And Karen and Jack both have this kind of sexual tension throughout the movie, even though they're partners. They kind of flirt with each other a little bit, which makes for some fun viewing. And you can see that these two actors really do have some nice chemistry throughout the film. And there is the great Gene Simmons in this film. Everybody knows him as the lead singer of Kiss, but not a lot of people know that the guy was also a pretty decent actor. He plays the villain in this movie. His character is called Luther. Throughout the movie, there are different scenes of these killer robots that are like household robots that become defective, that go around killing people around them. And because Tom Selleck's character is part of this runaway squad that goes around hunting these runaway killer robots, you got Tom Selleck's character on the case trying to track these robots down and take them down one at a time. Every now and then, the robots get a bit defensive and shoot out these lasers that are pretty dangerous that can kill you. Throughout the movie, the closer that Selleck's character Ramsay gets to the truth of what's behind the defective killer robots, the more danger he's in. And Gene Simmons' character, the villain Luther, is always in the background watching, kind of stalking him. He's always one or two steps ahead. And he makes for a very good villain in this movie, even though every now and then he plays it pretty big. He's also pretty subtle at times, so there's kind of a good mix of a little bit of broadness and, just being that kind of intimidating, kind of quiet villain that doesn't say much, but still pretty menacing because of this very piercing stare that Gene Simmons has in this movie. In efforts to stop Ramsay from getting to the truth about the killer robots, Luther goes around killing off any potential loose ends that could help Ramsay out with his investigation. And one of the methods that Luther likes to use, he has this handgun that is pretty interesting because it has kind of a semi-long barrel and it shoots off these mini heat-seeking missiles. And whenever he fires this off, we see the POV, the point of view of the missile through the air as it flies around and kind of goes around corners and up and down, and it eventually finds its target. And if you're not its target, then all you have to do kind of move around and kind of just shimmy a bit, but it's actually pretty fun to watch. This movie has a lot of things going for it. It has a very fun and interesting sci-fi plot. It has a creepy and badass villain. It has a hero that is identifiable and relatable because he's not like a superhero. He's just a normal guy. Tom Selleck is the main reason to watch this movie because he gives an excellent performance in this film. There's a really good scene towards the third act where there's kind of a standoff moment between him and Luther, Gene Simmons' character, and You see a lot of emotionality come out of Tom Selleck in that scene. A little too much maybe, but he really does give it his all throughout this film. Unfortunately, one of the things that holds this movie back for me is the way the premise is executed with those scenes of Tom Selleck going in to stop these runaway killer robots, because a lot of it is done with him on the ground crawling around, which isn't all that exciting, especially in the way that they film it. They try to do whatever they can to make it as exciting as possible with him crawling around on the ground, and you got the camera really low, and the little robot could be anywhere. Something else that I bump into that kind of bothers me whenever I watch this movie is this thing that the bad guy has in his arsenal of weapons, which are these spiders, these mechanical spiders that are pretty small, but I guess they can jump on you, they pounce on people, and they can attach themselves to your neck and start poking you with, little blades, or just cut you up and stuff and start stabbing you. And so, yeah, little scary little metal spiders, but they're not very threatening in the movie. You see them in action, and every now and then they're pretty lethal, but Tom Selleck's character comes up on a whole bunch of these towards the end. And seriously, this guy acts like he's really, really afraid of these little spiders, but the guy could just step on him or kick him. Whenever I watch those scenes with him and these metal spiders going after him, every time I watch those scenes, I just think to myself, just kick him, dude. Just come on, just please kick him. And no, he just, goes, ah. I know things like that could be considered nitpicks, but I do think that this movie had a very strong premise, and it has very good performances. And I think the movie could have been so much better had those things I mentioned that are nitpicks, I guess, if only they could have been improved on in some way. And I'm pretty sure that, had this movie had maybe a higher budget, better effects, those things would have been, a whole lot better. And this movie, I think, would be a lot better. However, for me, this is a 2.5-star movie. Even with those minor negatives and those nitpicks, I do think that this movie is still a very fun time and a very enjoyable Tom Selleck action sci-fi movie from 1984, Runaway. This is a movie that I'm not sure if you can find on every streaming service, but maybe you can rent it on Prime, maybe you can find it on Tubi. Those of you out there that know that I'm a physical media guy, I'm going to have my copy, and here it is, Runaway on DVD. As you can see there, Tom Selleck wearing that glorious push broom mustache that he made so famous back in the day with Magnum PI in the 80s. And yeah, Tom Selleck is one of those actors that I don't think we saw enough of throughout the 90s and 2000s, but back in the 80s, dude was the man. And yeah, 1984's Runaway, very fun, kind of cheesy, kind of B-movie-ish type movie, even though it's a studio movie, but kind of does have that kind of B-movie feel, because you can tell it's kind of a relatively low budget for a sci-fi movie, but nevertheless, still a good time. Check out 1984's Runaway. Thank you very much for watching this classic movie review. If you're into classics, if you're into movies, if you're into this kind of thing, and if you're new to the channel, hit the bell, subscribe. Please don't forget to comment, share, like, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for your support. Always appreciate it. Everybody take care of each other. Peace out. Till next time, and God bless.